Hello everyone and welcome to the 13th video message from the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. I am so looking forward to the time when we can gather together again, and from talking with a lot of you, you're exactly the same. Hopefully this value for corporate worship that we have realized throughout this time will never ever leave us. So let's be praying that everything moves towards that time sooner than we think it might be. Last week I was speaking to you about how we live in peace no matter what circumstances surround us, keeping our focus on God and the peace that comes from doing that. Isaiah 26, 3-4 says, "You will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord himself is the rock eternal." And we do this by consciously focusing, by consistently focusing, and by completely focusing on him. I hope that you found benefit from that message, and let's tie that message and the message before it into this message today. And today I want to speak to you about trust. Dallas Willard, who is a favourite author of mine, he was a theologian and a philosopher and had some very interesting and succinct things to say about being a Christian. So in his book, A Life Without Lack, Dallas says, to have faith in God is simply to trust God, to rely upon him in the face of all fears. It is reliance revealed in attitude and in action. And the question that we've got to answer for ourselves is, are we willing to place our trust in God? And as long as we're in denial, and actually we deep down believe that we can't or we won't, but we won't accept that. We won't accept the actual position that we have. We won't accept the reality of what we actually believe. We cannot change. We can't change it. God does not dwell in fantasy. He dwells in reality. God's grace is enough for us. But it cannot be enough for us when we will not accept the reality of our need for him and the deficiency of our own resources to supply what we do not possess. So if there are areas where we're too yielded to fear to trust God, we must admit them to ourselves. We must accept the reality of where we actually are and talk with God, asking him for his help to overcome the fear that we have allowed to hold us. And please remember, this is not about condemnation, because God does not do that. It's about conviction, and conviction, when it's acted on, will result in change that brings about life, and life in all its fullness. So once we realize and accept what we really think, we can be transformed by the renewing of our minds as we begin to recalibrate as to how God thinks. Truth is, we place our trust in so many things, and we exercise faith in so many areas of our lives. Here's some examples. We trust that on a certain date each month, our employer will pay us. We trust that the alarm clock will wake us up. We trust that our car, when we put the key in the ignition and we turn it, it's going to start and it's going to take us where we need to go. And we trust that the traffic lights will guide us safely through a junction, and also that the other drivers on the other side of the road or those coming down will obey what the traffic lights are asking them to do. The fruit of our trust is something really good, which is why we trust it. But somehow we lose the reality of our choice to exercise faith and trust in the everyday examples that I've just cited, because they're hidden by the familiarity of our daily lives. We don't notice that we're exercising faith and trust. And yet when it comes to having and exercising faith and trust in God, we stumble. See, the truth is that you have faith and trust, and you get to choose where you place it, and you're exercising it all the time. The season that we are currently in is requiring much more of us than we first thought. It's uncovering and exposing the places and people and things that we have placed our trust in, instead of placing our trust in the one who can supply everything that we need. We have allowed those people, places and things to usurp the place that God alone should have. And God asks us, as we grow in relationship with Him, to trust Him more and more and more. Because the truth is that there may be a day when our employer isn't actually able to pay us. And also we've all experienced the day when either our alarm clock malfunctions or it runs out of batteries. And the batteries in our cars, I'm sure that you find this as well, because it certainly happened to me. Because we're not using our cars as much, the battery's gone down and we've put the key in the ignition and we're utterly shocked when it doesn't start. And also cars break down. And traffic lights are sometimes out. And unfortunately, there are some drivers who don't obey them. But the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want, as David said in Psalm 23. And 2 Corinthians 9:8 says, God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. God is absolutely trustworthy. God can do absolutely everything that He says He can do, and He will do everything that He has promised. It is all conditional on our choice. He cannot supply everything we need if we will not accept Him as our shepherd and follow Him where He leads us. And sometimes we recognize that He is the shepherd to someone else. And then we look at our lives and we're shocked because we're not experiencing the abundance and the supply that they have. But what we miss is we've got to let Him be our shepherd, and we've got to respond and follow Him where He leads us. Remember that God does not dwell in fantasy. God dwells in reality. So the question is, will we increasingly trust Him and let Him lead us, which is living from our spirit? Or will we live from our soul, which is we may well listen to Him, but we'll assess what He says through our own understanding, through our soul, our mind, will and our emotions. We'll reject it and we'll go our own way. And then when we don't have the abundance that God promises, we'll blame Him for our resulting lack. As we increasingly trust Him, we will discover where our soul has been in control. We'll find that our minds are more settled. As we choose to trust Him more and more and more, peace governs us. And as we keep our minds settled on Him, peace comes in more and more and more. Psalm 62 verse 8 says this: Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. So let's take a moment to respond to this message now before God. So I invite you to close your eyes and to open out your body language. God, we choose in this moment to be still, to choose to be still, and to know that You are God and You will be exalted among the nations. God, we thank You for the areas that we do trust You, and we thank You that it is an exercise of trust and faith to speak to You now. But we do not want to have areas in our lives where we are more yielded to fear and what fear is telling us than to You. So God, we confess to You now that there are areas, and we have wanted to close our eyes to them, to stick our head in the sand. We've wanted to deny them. But the truth is that there are areas where we are struggling to trust You. And we ask that in this place of reality, in this place of truth, where truth sets us free, that You would help us to trust You, To trust you that where you ask us to place our foot, that you will give us that land. That we are to be strong and we are to be courageous because you are with us. God, we ask that you would help us to exercise this trust with attitude and with action, and that our lives would change, that we would experience more peace, that we would be more settled within ourselves, we'd be less fragmented, that we would be more whole, that we would make wise decisions in the light of your love instead of in the darkness of fear. And God, we ask that at this uncertain time in the earth, that we would trust in you because you are certain and you are the rock. You are the rock, God. God, will you continue by your word, by your presence, Jesus Christ, by your Spirit, will you continue to divide our soul and our spirit, that we could live from the place of our spirits connected to your Spirit, that we could walk into life. So God, we give you our yes and amen right now in this moment. I also want to encourage you to respond to this message in practical ways in the days ahead, so that we don't end up just hearing this and it's just words and it just falls away. So the first thing I want to say is let God encourage you with areas in your life where you have already placed your trust in him. And celebrate with him the victory that it is, and how this has changed your life for the better and how it's better for those around you. It is so important that we remember, because yesterday's victory encourages us to overcome today. And spend time with him this week. Ask him to show you any areas in your life where fear has allowed to strangle your ability to trust God. Change how you talk and think about those things, placing God in the equation, which always equals life. Change your self-talk. When you find yourself in areas of fearfulness, place God in there. Change how you talk about it to others and how you think about it in your mind. And also recognize any areas where you've accepted condemnation rather than conviction, and realize that God does not condemn you in any shape or any form. Find a verse or a portion of scripture that you really connect with, that communicates how worthy God is of your trust. And if you're like me, I write it in my journal. I write it repeatedly and daily in my journal. I might have it on a post-it note in a place that I'm going to know that I'm going to see it, or place it in various places that I'm going to walk past at different parts of the day, so that it will remind me. And just as you fall asleep, trusting that your alarm clock is going to wake you, learn to deny your fears entry into your mind. Ignore them. Trust your God and let peace and rest come. I only have a couple of items of business this week, and I just want to very briefly highlight again that the weekly email that I send out every Wednesday has everything that you need to know that is happening in the life of DCB. If you would like to receive that email, or you know of someone who you think would benefit from it, then please email me at colin.destinationchurch@gmail.com. And as we have been inviting you and calling you to do this each week, please continue to pray for Ireland. The time that they have set aside again is 3 to 4 p.m. or an hour that suits you. And we're calling you to join with thousands throughout our churches across Ireland to pray for our land again, with the final 10 minutes being on our knees. And let me just invite you that if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, if you can do the whole hour, then wonderful. But please make the effort to do that. And as always, please know that if I can help you and you would like to talk with me, then please know that my digital door is always open. Have a great week, and bye for now.